When we build, let us think that we build forever. I'm architect Karan Anand, introducing you to season 6, episode 3 of Moñö Architecture, All Things Designed, brought to you by our brand partners Highback Kitchen Studio, Embellish and Turquoise. Today we have with us Alpa Shikre, co-founder of SSA, a practice that believes in these ideologies, is a legacy practice rooted in Indian culture, heritage, and has the most beautiful practice that I can talk about, and I cannot wait to introduce her to all of you all. Hi, it's lovely to have you here.
Karan.
So I'd like for you to just address our audiences and give one line about who you are or a few lines.
Yes. Thank you for inviting me
my
for
pleasure.
this. I think I'm privileged to be here.
Thank you.
And I'm Alpa Shikre. I'm the co-founder of Sandeep Shikre and Associates. Sandeep Shikre is my husband, and we started the practice some decades ago. Let's not put a number to it.
Yeah, let's not put a number.
Yeah.
Like we were discussing earlier.
Yes. And we do architecture as well as interior designing. And we also have a PMC,
Wow.
Project Management Consultancy.
Lovely.
So that's the one-liner about our
Thank
practice.
you so much. Before we begin talking about the practice itself, I want to talk about how you started this journey. You spoke about a conversation that you had when you were in school, and you kind of stayed with it, and then it led to this entire journey. So could you tell me a little bit about this?
So let me start with my parents, who were the first generation to be here from their hometown. And we lived in a joint family. 2 sisters got married to 2 brothers.
Wow.
So you can imagine the chaos.
Yeah. It's the same in my house also, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So in all, we were 7 siblings. And since they were first immigrants, I mean, they had a modest house.
Yeah.
And space was always a constraint. Besides that, we would have people sending their children to experience Mumbai. So those cousins also lived with us. So we were always grappling with space and trying to accommodate, move things, all of us trying to study at the same time, and somebody wants to entertain themselves. So it was always about negotiating with the space. And at that time, forget school, it's more after school.
Okay.
Is when at the 10th or 12th you have to decide now what you have to do. We had a 10 plus 2, right? So at plus 2 you have to decide what you have to do, and that time engineering and medicine.
There was nothing else.
Then otherwise BCom, BSc and BA, that was it. And I was the youngest of the 7 siblings. So my elder sister, who's about 6 years older to me, she went to ladies college because she was the first one. She went to an all-women college, Nirmala Niketan, and she felt, she went on to be a nutritionist, of course. She felt that she could have done a lot more if she would have had the right guidance, because my parents were first immigrants, so okay, they were trying to busy,
And you can only do as much as you're exposed
exactly,
to.
Exactly. So, and at that time we had the culture of cousins meeting, because of course there was no social media. You would go to each other's house. So luckily she happened to be there at my cousin's place, whose friends happened to, so their cousins' friends are also your friends. And she met somebody who was doing architecture. And I was always interested in space, curious, and had a good hand at art. So while talking to him, she was asking him, what is it about, this, that. And then she came and said, why don't you try and go for architecture? So I said, okay, fine. And that's how I got into the profession.
Lovely.
Actually.
And then, I mean, there was no looking back after
Yeah. I loved it. I loved it. So
where did you study your architecture from?
So I passed out from Academy of Architecture, which is at Prabhadevi.
Yes.
And I met Sandeep there.
Lovely.
He was my senior. 4 years senior to me. At that time, Academy was a very small, it's not like how it is now. It was
now
just
it's a huge
5 sheds put together. So the whole atmosphere there was very different, and that's also how you learn how space behaves with people.
Exactly.
I think that was our first lesson over there, because it was so intimate that everybody knew everybody just because of the way it was planned.
And when you talk about how space behaves with people, your practice is very human-centric.
Yes.
I think that's very, very important, because you build for the people, you do not build for the structure itself. Could you maybe put a little light on this ideology that your practice has.
So our tagline of our practice is SSA, space, people and happiness.
Lovely.
So we always feel the space is for the people and
Yeah.
or how the people feel in the space. I think that's the emotion that is most important, because if you're designing a house and that house is so cluttered, or in a way that that person does not feel good in the house, then you've lost. I mean, the whole purpose is lost. So the space has to be joyful for the person. In fact, when we were designing the hospital, the Kokilaben hospital at Warsaw, the brief that we got was that the hospital should feel like a home.
Wow.
And that drove our entire design. I mean, that was not the direct brief we got, but when we were interacting with Dina Mani, she was saying that when Dhirubhai was in hospital, it was just like he commented on how these curtains are, or kitna hospital jaisa hai.
It's like almost like abhi aap hospital mein ho tab jao.
It's like some spaces just feel like a hospital, like those tiles and that.
And no
kind
matter
of
how much wealth you have, you end up coming to a space that is so poorly designed that it just makes you feel so morbid.
And it makes you feel more sick.
Yeah, it gets you sicker.
So our whole philosophy was there to design as if you're in a hotel or in a second home. And that drove our design. So it's very people-centric, it's very emotional, it's how people should feel in that space.
I was actually hearing this interview, it was absurd. Okay, so this designer said that we make it in such a way that you want to leave the place and you want to go back home. And I was just like, the way someone defends poor design is incredible. But I mean, thank you for that answer.
I think that was a very diagrammatically opposite to what.
कि मतलब इतना खराब है कि bag you'll get okay and you'll want to leave. And I said, I don't think that's how things work in a hospital. You don't have a say no in that. But
because first of all, you're already not feeling well, so you have to feel a little better with the environment. And I think everything in the environment makes you feel a certain way. So I think that's our approach.
I want to talk about, so see, everybody knows your practice now. You're a legacy practice. Everybody knows you're doing phenomenal work. I want to talk about the struggles behind setting it up. I'm sure it was not easy. I'm an architect myself, and I know the nuances of it in today's day and age. You set up a very long time back, and you all are now thriving as a practice. I would like to talk to you about the patience of setting it up and the nuances and difficulties of practice.
Yeah. So we started off as a, actually Sandeep is my senior, so he was working with an architect who was also a professor of academy at that point. And when he passed out, and it was a two-man practice at that time. And he saw the potential in Sandeep.
Now you're 400.
Sorry, yeah,
now
we are 400 now.
Only.
Yeah. Growing.
Of course.
And he took him on as a associate partner kind of thing. He said, why don't you join me? And so that's how it started. And then as I passed out, I worked somewhere else for 1 year, and then I joined them. So in a way, Uday Dige, he was the mentor for me and for Sandeep. And he was already older. So at that time, it was a 3-4 people practice. I mean, we just grew so organically, and then Uday faded out. And then luckily it kept growing. I think also at that point, the practice and the evolution of the practice in Mumbai was very different, because the laws were not allowing reconstruction and things like that. So at that point, it was more about extensions in Hindu colony. Because
Understood,
of the cess buildings and things like that. So they allowed extension. And so it started with that, and more of an interior practice, because there was not so much buildings happening. But there are 2 or 3 things that drive. It's the passion and the honesty to the practice. That kind of drives where you go from 2 to 400. You have to be honest in your practice. You have to be ethical in your practice. I think that is one very, very important thing which I would like to stress on. So that is a thing. Unethical practice is something that we don't tolerate. Even if we know that somebody in our office has done something unethical, that is unforgivable. So I think these are the things that kind of brought us forward. And I think a truthfulness to your practice is what will, and hard work, of course.
Yeah,
That is
that's
how
the
we have
primary.
grown. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it grew very organically. We started then with 4 or 5 people,
Yeah.
and then we had more people. And another very important aspect is we treat everybody in the office like a family.
Lovely.
It's even today. It's not like an employee and employee. Anybody can just walk into Sandeep's cabin or come and talk to me about anything.
Yeah.
There is no like, oh, we cannot go there, whether it's an intern or whether it's the senior practitioner.
Yeah, the associates of
And we
Mumbai.
were very lucky to have the seniors who are with us since nearly when we began, like you can say. They joined as interns and then they came back and then now they have become the principals.
Yeah.
So we have been lucky to have good
Yeah.
people also.
I think retaining a team is a major skill set in itself.
I think it's all about your human approach to the people. I think that approach is what helps us to retain people.
And I think it also gives the privilege for the mind to get associated with something, because
Yes.
architecture is design at the end of it,
Yes.
right? So I feel like you have to kind of charge your mind in a certain way. And it's nice that you're patient with this entire process.
Absolutely. To be a creative, this thing, you have to have a cool mind.
Also, I wanted to ask you about something interesting. Your practice focuses a lot of contextual driven architecture. So I don't know if you'll intentionally do it or is this ingrained in your ideologies, but when I look at your practice, when I look at your projects, when I look at all scales, it is always so relatable to the environment it is built in. I feel like this is an art form in itself, um, like adaptive reuse or sustainable practice, and your practice is doing it immensely well. If I was a fly on the wall and if I could hear how you all do this, could you tell me?
So I think it's not consciously done. It just happens.
Yeah.
Because when you any project that comes, you will first look at it from the point of view of where it is, how it is oriented, what is the sun path, how will the light filter in, and I think it just automatically goes into a little contextual form in that manner as to where the place is. That said, in terms of, I think, the aesthetics, it may not always be contextual, because we have a lot of debates in our community, architecture community, about these glass facade and the buildings, and we do a lot of them.
Yes.
So it's a very, like, many of them don't appreciate it, many appreciate it. But if you're doing a tall building,
Yeah, you have
which
to.
is 60-story, 100-story, digitized glass is the way to go.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it's how are you supposed to finish that building? So it has to be contextual in both those manners.
Even operationally,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
operationally, where it is situated, it may not always aesthetically be contextual, but in other manners, in terms of the function or how fast the project has to be, what is the cost of the project, it has to all relate together.
I actually asked you this question hoping you give this answer, because you know what happens is, as say a student of architecture or an ideological architectural practice, or suppose you want to be one, there's always this thing that, you know, if I design, I will design in a certain way, and then context is always considered only context to your environment. But you also have to give context to the actual build, where, I mean, if you're building a 60-story building that is, say, a hospital, for example, right? You cannot, unfortunately, have it punctured and open. And so, thank you for that wonderful answer. It kind of adds a lot of insight into large scale practices and how buildings are done. I want to talk about restraint in your design. You know, now you've been practicing for a while, and in interiors, in architecture, practices tend to go overboard sometimes, because they're like, you know, now I have the privilege of doing whatever I want without being questioned. Your practice, on the other hand, focuses on restraint. You do what is essential, you make it look a certain way. Again, the same way you focus on the context, like we discussed, this is also something that your practice emphasizes on. Could you tell me a little bit about this?
So when you pass out architecture, like you must have also, you have all aspirations of I'll do this, I'll do this, I'll do this.
Yeah, I thought I would be like Howard Rock.
Come in.
I thought I'd blow up a building I don't like. But
And when you come into the practice, it's like one big blow.
Yeah.
So you, first of all, you don't know where you are, you don't know what you're going to do, and it's like all muddled up. And then you start with layering yourself, that okay, now I have to do this, and then you want to add this, add that, and after a certain time you realize that space or design is not about adding everything, it's about not adding certain things, I think. It's more important of leaving out certain things, that is the restraint. And then it slowly becomes like a discipline. I mean, it becomes like a subconscious where you restrain yourself and you add what is only required.
Lovely.
I think it's very important to keep out certain elements from the design.
Do you feel like this takes time to build this mindset?
Yes, I think in fact presently I am having a very dichotomy because I have to do a maximalist space. The clear idea is to make that space maximalist, and we are having such a tough time in the office doing that because now it's become like a second nature to, I wouldn't say minimalism, but not overcrowd things. There is a certain art of doing that. A lot of people are doing that and I love their work also. But it's difficult to suddenly change. So I think it's over the time, it just becomes a nature to do that kind of work. It's not repetitive, but it's just allowing yourself to keep certain things out. I think that's very important.
And I feel like, again, I'm constantly praising your practice because I'm an ardent admirer of it. But you know, when you look at, say, B.V. Doshi or Charles Correa, especially the internal spaces that they designed, they kind of made the country realize that just because, you know, there is Indian heritage, it does not mean that every bed must be an antique faux poster. Contemporary Indian architecture is one of the most beautiful forms of minimalism, and I feel like your practice is a master of that craft. Again, I want to ask you, what are your ideologies basis this?
So both the B.V. Doshi and Charles Correa, very correctly you said, had did it contextually, but not with the motifs of Indian architecture. And it was about courtyards and how the environment suits that particular project, or using the certain colors in certain way. So I think some of those things have driven our practice. You know, studying all these architects when you are younger, and we didn't have Pinterest and all, so it was all about going through their works and understanding what
going to
they
the library,
had to, opening the book and understanding, reading what was behind the philosophy of what they have designed. I think that is a lot of the things that have driven our
I feel like that is, you know, even when I think about college and Akhtar sir telling me, you know, library mein ja, book khol, pad, you know, that was our research. Like we were making a film on an art movement. So he said you take a camera and just roam around the city. If you had to sketch if you had to learn about arches, you had to go and sketch the arches in Churchgate. So, I mean, I feel like this is very, very important, and I feel like it's not there anymore. It needs to be taught a lot more. Thank you for that lovely answer.
In fact, Akhtar Chavan, he was an ardent photographer, and he would always show us his slideshows. To be an architecture educator is also a very difficult job.
Coming back to the topic, I would like to talk on materiality. This is also something that is very evident in your practice, and it is something very difficult to learn because, you know, you kind of, again, like you said, pick up something from Pinterest and try to implement it without understanding the nature of the material. So your practice again focuses a lot on materiality. Could we talk a little bit about that?
So again, materiality is something that is very important to the interior as well as architecture, because depending on what material you put on the facade, your building is going to behave accordingly, and you have to design as per that. I mean, if it is maybe in a arid space or where the context is, that's how the context comes in terms of environment and the material for architecture projects. For interior also, I think materiality is one of the things that is very, very important. Besides lighting, I think lighting also is a very important thing.
These are two primary.
Because the way when you're walking in your house, the way your foot feels on that cold marble or on the kota, you know, leather finished kota, it's a very different feel. So each material has its context of where it is used and how it is used and how it kind of cohesively makes the environment. So material is very important. It's not just about, oh, ye curtain acha dikhta hai isliye main laga rahi hu, but why that color, why that kind of fabric. A very simple incident I will give you. When we choose the fabrics for the curtain, for a high rise, we make sure the loom is fire retardant. because in a high rise, if the curtain, now we have all these facade glasses
Yeah.
which are top to bottom pura glass, so the curtains are long, like how
Yeah.
you can see them here. So if
No
that
pelmet,
catches
basically.
fire,
Yeah.
then it's a disaster.
Yeah, it spreads like.
Yeah, it spreads like, and in fact, that was one of the things that saved Sandeep, I would say,
Oh.
because we had a very bad fire incident at our house.
Okay.
But since the curtains were fire retardant, they didn't catch fire.
Wow.
So I would say that's a
Yeah,
so
win-win.
each material is very important. The functionality of it, the aesthetics of it, and the feel of it.
Yeah.
So yeah, materials, how we choose it for what, it's not just because we are liking the look of it, but why it is chosen is important.
That's so, that's such a different angle. I never thought of it in that way. Again, coming back to the point where, you know, when I talk about materiality, it is always said in such a ideological way, but it is not ever answered in a practical way. So it's
Yeah, everyone tells me over practical actually.
but that's
I
how it
am
has
not sure.
to. Yeah.
That's
No,
what
I
you
feel like,
wanted.
you know, this profession, as I'm growing older in this profession, I realize that you have to approach it from a practical sensibility, because it comes and hits you. You know, it's not a very friendly space to be in. And just on a lighter note, when you spoke about quota, I wish my team was here, because, you know, every time I'm with my client, I'm like, walk on it bare feet. You'll like it. You know, you'll feel it, how it feels on your feet. In fact, one of my clients told me your talk show should be called Kota with Karan. So I was like, fine, we shall.
No, especially earlier interiors, we had a lot of Gujarati clients. I'm a Guju myself, nothing against them. Marble, white marble is what they want.
Yeah.
But it's all, in some spaces that makes sense. Why the marble is there in the temples is so that it remains cool and things like that. But they don't realize, oh, mandir mein hai, white marble, wo mujhe acha laga hai, ye white marble
It's
chahiye.
illogical. No?
Yeah. So sometimes you have to walk them through that. And yeah, sometimes you have to give in.
Yeah, and I feel like fortunately for us, our country is now realizing that Indian materiality is the way to go.
Yes,
and also the price point of it is great. Someone was trying to sell me quota for 3 times what you get in the market, and I was just looking at him and I said, what are you doing? He's like, no, this is new, this, that. I'm like, listen, like, stop it. So I'm worried that quota is now suddenly going to become more expensive than...
No, in fact, a lot of times when you travel abroad and you realize they have used quota, and then you realize why you're not getting the best quota back home.
Because
they have all exported it. You know, but yes, like you're saying, now people are using more and more Indian materials. I think Indian designers are also doing a fab job. Nowadays, you see all these young designers, young or old, with these beautiful pieces of furniture. I've stopped using Italian furniture now. I believe only in the Indian manufacture.
That's lovely.
Of course, Modi made in India.
Yeah.
So that's another agenda that's there.
Yeah, my client, in fact, we had gone to Kochi, and there was this entire, the Biennale and all of that, and they sent me pictures of furniture that was available there, like antiques, and it was so beautiful. I was just like, you know, what are we doing?
So we had one apartment we did for one of our clients, and he said he had a second home in Goa, and he said, you know, I have some lovely furniture which I have got from Kerala, and he is a very passionate man. So he's saying, oh, we had gone to Kerala and they were breaking a bungalow, so I liked it, hum utha ke leke aaye. Some beds and one column, one that very typical column with those brackets
the
and all.
ones.
And he said, I want to use that. I said, okay. It was just one column. It was a beautiful column with all the nice, you know, the
carvings and
all. And then we were wondering how do we use it and all. And then we split it in half.
Wow.
And we used it. It was not very tall because Kerala house, it's in the courtyard, right? So it's where the roof comes in. So the height was just hardly about 6.5 or 7 feet. And now all apartments have 12, 13 feet height. So then we constructed the lower part. We used it half, and then we used it in a way where we arched it as an artwork, you know, with some artwork. So yeah, I think that is another aspect, like where you think of how to use the materials.
And I think that when you're talking about this, what is your take on adaptive reuse in interior practices?
I think adaptive. So this very project,
like this example,
we used all the furniture There are not all the furniture, but
Yeah.
the beds and some side tables which are really good.
Yeah.
So I think adaptive reuse is the way to
Yeah.
go, even to be sustainable, but it's not always usable. Like we have clients saying that, oh, now you're breaking this, you use this ply and all for the
Yeah.
other wardrobe. We try to explain to them, the labor that will go in it is much more than you getting a new
Exactly.
labor and time,
Yeah.
because time is money.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's a balance
Yeah.
between what you are reusing and why you are using.
You can't
It's
just start, yeah.
Exactly. So we are not against reusing. Reusing must, and now sustainability, of course.
Yeah.
Reuse is also about keeping, not trying to harvest new things all the
Yeah.
time. So I think it is kind of again becoming a habit to readapt
Yeah.
and reuse. Readapt and reuse, I would say, actually if you see from the time of childhood, where we used to recycle the paper,
Exactly.
even today,
Yeah.
we give it to the
Raddiwala.
Raddiwala. I think India has always been very
Yeah.
adaptable
We
and
know
sustainable.
we know how to kind of use our material.
Yes.
I think it's also because of the economic strata, right?
Yes,
we try to make
exactly.
use of everything.
Of everything.
Okay, so before we continue though, now we're going to play a small game.
Okay.
Okay, now we're going to play a game. It's called Red Flag, Green Flag. And since it's just you and me, and the brand refuses to give me any hampers,
Okay.
you're going to get a hamper
Okay.
anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's no right and wrong answer.
Yeah, there's no right
Okay,
and wrong.
good.
It's a easy game.
Okay.
Yeah. Ready? Okay. A workspace influenced by Tadao Ando's minimal concrete aesthetic.
I love it.
Easy one that was. Yeah. Concept is everything. Details will follow. I was hoping you do that. Yeah. Okay. Controlled palette that ages well. Following global trends to stay relevant.
Yes and no.
Circulation is just functional. Sustainable materials used as a visual statement.
Yes.
You did that.
Yes.
Yeah, we just spoke about it. Hidden storage everywhere.
Yes, in terms of Mumbai, yes.
I
maybe
love
not
how you're so
others.
practical and you're giving like bang on answers.
Maybe
like
not in Gurgaon
Yeah.
or something.
Efficiency is more important than exploration.
I think so.
Okay, lovely. Thank you so much. Those were some lovely answers. So now let's come back to our conversation after that game, and I want to talk to you about timelessness in practice and about the influx of trends in practice. So I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but of late projects are being developed basis trends. These trends don't last; they come, they go. I feel like there's a fine line between deriving an inspiration and imitating a trend, right? Could you tell us a little bit about this?
So, trends, like you said, yes. So, trends work in certain kind of spaces and contexts again. Maybe if it's a hotel,
Yeah.
trend may work. But you see timeless hotels also, like a Ritz-Carlton. You know what to expect when you go there. So, it's more about the shock value where trends are concerned. But I think basically timelessness is something in which the space has grown over the time. More than the way it looks, or whether it's imitated something trend at that
Yeah.
time, but it's about how your space has grown over time. I mean, it's very nice for us. We have a lot of repeat clients, and I think that makes a big statement, because that person was happy. They have grown with what you had
Yeah.
designed for them, and they have come back to you. And they said, when you had, at 25 years ago, when you had designed this, I yet like it.
Yeah.
I think that is a
Yeah.
timelessness of that thing
Yeah.
to have taken place at that point.
Yeah.
So, timelessness definitely has an upper hand for
Yeah.
me than trends.
Yeah.
Trends will come and go, trends have their shock value, they have their place, but a space growing with time, and I wouldn't like the space to freeze
Yeah.
in that time, because when you have made the space, that space has to grow with the people
Yeah.
around them, of how they inhabit it, how they treat it, how they feel in it, and it grows with them. Especially if I specifically talk about residences, in India we have multi-generational
Yeah.
people staying.
I was just
Now,
going
of
to
course, the
ask you.
trends are moving to more nuclear families, but at that time, it is multi-generational, so it has to grow with the needs. So the design has to be timeless in the sense that every 5 years, 6 years, they do not need to change it. It has to allow them to grow in that space, and that's where again keeping things out is important, like what we talked about earlier, of less being more kind of thing, because that allows them to grow into that space.
Lovely. And I also feel like you must realize that when you're designing a space in a certain God complex kind of a way, multiple generations are going to be living in the same space. They're not going to be there like on a set, you know, like कि 2 साल में हम change कर लेंगे. A lot of people don't even have the resources to do it, and why must you do it? And you spoke about something so beautiful. It reminded me of Korea's Belapur, where he designed it in such a way that it grows with the population and the inhabitants. And unfortunately, it's not working out because I think practices don't realize the importance of it, and you hit the hammer on the nail, you know, with that beautiful. Even Praveer Sethi told me that recently. He said, I design my spaces so that it grows with the family.
Yes.
You know, you have a child, you have a pet, you grow, you reduce sometimes, you know. So it's such a beautiful approach that you have. Thank you so much for that beautiful answer. I also want to talk to you about the new generation that has come into architecture. We have a very young viewer base. I feel like there are certain things that are being done right, certain things that are being done wrong. When I was studying, it was very, very extremely difficult, you know, to become an architect or to become an interior designer. I don't know if that is the case anymore. Could you tell us about this and what could be changed?
So, what I find in the present, the generation, you may say Gen Z, Alpha, Beta, whatever it is because of the social media. It may be my perception, and I'm not saying 100% are like that, but a lot of them are so influenced by the Pinterest images, and I think somewhere the creativity has got lost. I mean, we used to, I to date, I need a paper and pencil in my hand to design, and I think one of the very important things is your finger is kind of connecting to your heart, they say, you know, when you write. So I think that comes from the heart, the design. And I find that, again, let me be very clear, I'm not saying 100% of them, but a large section of them are very influenced by social media and the Pinterest. I mean, the advantage of this networking and internet and all this, they have a good global exposure, which we never had. Like we said, whatever we saw in the books was what was part of our inspiration. One thing I would like to give them as a message is there is no shortcut to hard work. I find a trend where when we are interviewing the candidates for recruitment, they have changed jobs every 2 years. They're just looking at, okay, 2 saal ke baad, I want little more pay, so I'm jumping. As an architect, your project is not going to get completed in 2 years. You have to have the perseverance to see a project through, to understand how much ever you've done in your theory. You may have been the best student, but if practically you have not executed a project, there are thousands of things you don't know, and you are learning every day. Even today, we are learning. I mean, every day is a new day. Every day there's a new challenge to be met. So I think little perseverance is what they need. It is 2-minute Maggie generation. They want everything so quick. So they should slow down. I would just give them advice that slow down, dwell in that space you are, and then move forward. I think it's very important. I tell my daughters also that, because especially in our profession, if you've not seen a project through, you really don't know the nitty-gritties of it. We used to sit down with the carpenters and we used to ask them, ye kyun kiya, wo kyun kiya. I mean, you're not taught everything in college or in school. And it is only with a lot of practical knowledge that you gain the experience over the years. So we used to sit down and ask them, you know,
how have you done this?
Yeah, and okay, I want to do this. They used to give us so much knowledge. Yeah, acha, aapko ye karna hai, and then we can do it this way. And we were not shy about asking questions. That was another thing, I think. Another thing is work-life balance. I think that concept is too much ingrained in that generation. Okay, they may balance it well, but when you have time, you do the hard work.
Yeah.
When you grow old, you're going to have your responsibilities, you're not going to be able to
Yeah.
give this much time.
Yeah.
You have to be passionate, and if you're passionate about what you're doing, it's not like working. It's like
Yeah, I mean,
having fun every day.
And I
That's
just
how
feel
I
like,
look at it.
and I feel like in design, if you're like, 6 बज गए मैं जा रहा हूँ, I could not imagine doing that when I was working, because you had to just, I don't remember when I went home before 10 p.m. It was just work, 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 and I feel like that's how you learn.
Because that was not work.
Yeah, it was
That
not
was
work,
fun.
it was fun, yeah. It taught you also, it gave you a certain way to approach life, because now problems seem very solvable, you know,
Yes.
you're not always like, so I always tell my team that imagine you didn't have Pinterest, you didn't have Instagram, and then sit with a paper and a pencil and sketch.
Exactly.
You know, so even when I take notes, I think they'll relate to it. I'm like, give me a paper
and pen, and they are like on the phone.
I can't do it. I feel so old sometimes, but I just can't. It bothers me. But I mean, thank you for that beautiful answer. I also would like for you to speak about a project that you're working on, you know, just so that we know how the process is, what it's all about.
So, it's a project which is already completed. It's a farmhouse in Karjat. So, it started off, it is my own farmhouse.
Lovely.
So, it is very close to heart. So, it is in a forest, and we wanted to keep the forest
The ecology, yeah.
ecology, but we had a lot of debate in our office about this, because there was one group who felt no, it should be an organic structure, and which is true, but I said, you know what, at this age now, architecturally yes, an organic structure sounds very dreamlike, but I, again, my practical self, I said I need my AC, I'm scared of insects, I need that closed windows, no mosquitoes. I mean, now
that's
I
fair.
do need it. So we did a very good balance between the two, where our structure is like a raw architecture.
Lovely.
And we have maintained, luckily we had a strip in the whole space. It was actually 3 plots, so there was a road strip in between.
Okay.
So we used that road strip to put our structure.
Oh, okay.
So we planned it accordingly, so that we don't have to disturb too much of the environment. And now it sits so nicely in that environment. So, and of course, since we were our own clients, we knew exactly what we want. We had a lot of debate, because I wanted only a ground structure, and Sandeep said no, ground plus 1. Of course, he won the argument, and then we have made it ground plus 1 at certain places. But so it was a whole process, though it was not like today we've done it and it's done. It got evolved out of what we want. We had lots of debate in the office, because everyone was very excited. You know, it's your own project,
to design,
you don't have any client restriction, and you can do what you want. So everyone was coming up with their own ideas, you know.
Nice.
Why don't you do this, and why don't you do that? And I'm very happy to say what has turned out is very nice.
Was it difficult to design your own space?
No, it was a lot of fun actually.
Really? You're the first person who's saying this,
The only thing is, sometimes we had a debate, but one thing between the two of us is that once we have entrusted the partner, I mean, if Sandeep has entrusted me or I have entrusted him, then we don't kind of interfere in that space. So I think that helped in doing what I wanted to do.
Nice, I'm happy. You won basically.
Where the structure is concerned, okay, I said I'll listen to you, but the rest of the things are all mine.
Which is fair, which is fair. I mean, you are handling the interiors more than him, so.
And the beauty of it is the way it's evolving with the season. So every season it looks different. I think, and that is also another thing when we do architecture, when we do a structure, we have to think about that. So in the monsoon it feels very different. At present it's all I mean, all the trees have shed and it's like pretty barren. It's in a forest. So you know, all the trees have shed the leaves, and it's a very different experience now. So each season is very different.
Do you derive from art movements, or like say brutalism or any of these things when you design?
Not really, but more contemporary, I would say. Practice is more leaning towards contemporary architecture rather than I wouldn't call it brutalism, but I do like the raw concrete.
I feel like again the reason why I asked you this question is because it's so easy to just like take a European concept when you have everything here already, and your practice is ingrained with the fact that you use what is available in our own country without adding a stamp of an art movement to it.
No,
That's why I
art
said,
movement, though we appreciate it, we don't really run after art movements.
yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Before we call this conversation a wrap, we're going to have a rapid fire. Okay, so I'm going to ask you 7 questions. You just have to give me very, very quick answers. Okay? Would you rather start with the plan or let the section guide the project?
I start with the layout.
Lovely. Oh, you start with the layout?
Yeah, with the plan, because I think how we move from one space to another is very important.
Actually, this should be or let the 3D guide the project. Section से कौन start करता है? Section से तो मैंने भी नहीं किया कभी start. That's a new one. चलो good. Maybe someone will say yes. Would you rather resolve circulation first or let it emerge from the design?
No, like I said, I think the layout is very important to me, so circulation first.
Reduce materials or explore material variety?
Reduce materials.
Okay. Simplify repeatedly or layer gradually?
Layer gradually.
Do you respond more to proportion or to experience?
Both, I would say, but more to experience now.
Okay. Okay. Do you think more in plan or in movement?
In plan.
I think that the movement comes in that only.
Yeah, because it's, I mean, both
Yeah.
are synonymous to each other.
Do you create contrast or continuity?
Contrast,
Okay.
because I think that gives the little bit of a surprise and wow factors.
Thank you so much for those lovely answers. Let's give her a round of applause for those beautiful answers. Thank you. Before we call this conversation a wrap, I would like for you to address our audiences and just give one point of advice or anything you'd like to share with them.
So you must have heard me give this advice numerous times on numerous platforms. I think design is not about what you want to do, but it's about translating your client's aspiration through you to what they want and enjoying the process.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for those.
That's the philosophy I work on.
I'll just quickly sign off.
Yeah.
Thank you for watching Season 6, Episode 3 of Moñö Architecture, All Things Designed. Brought to you by brand partners Highbeck, Kitchen Studio, Embellish and Turquoise.